So my story starts when I was 16 and I'd left school and I was working in a sports shop, and my plan was just to train up in management and do all the typical things a young guy would do, and that was life. That's where life was heading for me. And a young lady used to come in the sports shop who I went to school with, and well, to be honest, I was always a bit sweet on her. And so as she started coming into the sports shop, I used to chat to her a bit more, and I asked her to go out on a date and things like that. But I was aware that she and her family all went to church like every week, and I thought to myself, well, maybe if I go to church too, it might help improve things, chances of a relationship, and probably keep the family happy too. And so I went for the first time, and that was interesting because I wasn't ever raised in a family that ever went to church. My Sunday mornings were swimming every week and things like that, Sunday roast. So church was never on the agenda. Funerals, weddings, that stuff, but never anything more than that. So I went to church for the first time with this kind of image in my mind of what church was going to be like, and it was just really different. And I don't sort of want that to sound cheesy, but it was really different from what I thought church was going to be like. Loads of different ages of people, a real family feel about it. And I kind of felt attracted to that and wanted to come back again, but for me, for rather than just for the fact that this girl was going. So I chose to keep going along. Of course, it was a bonus that Claire, the girl, was there as well. And so I started going along every week, and what happened was things changed in time, because rather than just listening to something and feeling removed, it started to hit home. Started to feel like the guy who was talking was like talking to me. And in that time I became more aware that Jesus was real, and that he loved me, and that he died for me, and that I could become a Christian, and not just become, I wanted to become one, and I wanted him as part of my life, and I wanted to live for him and follow him, because I was a young guy, but my heart was being touched and just melted by that. So I became a Christian that summer, and went on to marry a girl, which was great. That was the bonus as well. And we got married, and then fast forward, not long after we got married, and we'd been to church one Christmas day. Actually, it was 2002, Christmas Day 2002, and we were having the family over for Christmas lunch. And so we got back from church, and Claire was just doing all the veg and bits and bobs. And I thought it was a bit weird because I texted my dad that morning, and me and my dad were really, really close. And him and me and my brother had a great relationship. My parents were separated, and my dad just lived a little way away, but saw him loads and stuff. And so I texted someone, but I had no reply. And I got back from church. That's really strange because my dad's not replied. It's not like him, so I'll give him a call. So I tried to give him a call, and still no reply. And I thought, this is a bit odd, and why couldn't I get hold of him? And then just a little while after that, my phone rang, and I can still remember it now really clearly because it was my younger brother. Now I was 21 at the time, and my younger brother's a couple of years younger than me. He was on the other end of the phone, and he was crying a lot and struggling to kind of make sense of what he was saying. And then I asked him just to kind of calm down a bit and let me know what was going on. And he just said to me, Darryl, Dad's been in a car accident, and we need to ring the hospital. The police have rung and said he's had an accident. We need to ring the hospital. So I guess probably being the big brother, I kind of said, I'll do that. And so I rang the hospital, and then I got hold of a lady on the other end. I just said, my dad's been in a car accident, and I just expected her to say, yeah, come and see him, he's okay. But she said, oh, are you sitting down? Have you got people with you? And alarm bells start ringing. You're thinking to yourself, this doesn't sound good. And so I remember just kind of them beginning to break down, and I remember just saying to her, just begging her, tell me, is my dad going to live? Is my dad going to live? And she said to me, I can't say, you need to get here as quickly as you can. So living in Kingsley, and I needed to get to Leicester. so my in-laws drove me to Leicester, and I was all over the place emotionally. My mind was awash with all kind of different thoughts. Was he going to live? What had happened? What was? I just didn't know. I couldn't get my head straight. I remember feeling angry, like instantly, just like, why me? Why my dad? And just punching the sofa, and all this emotion that was pouring out. And we drove what was the longest journey ever to Leicester, and we got to a specialist heart hospital in Leicester, and I was in a waiting room, and my family started to all gather in the waiting room. I still remember now the people from surgery, the surgeon came through, and I don't know if this is too graphic, but I remember coming through. I remember he was wearing like Crocs, for surgery, and I remember seeing some like blood on his Crocs, and just that's an image that stayed in my mind. I thought, that's my dad's blood, and he just had that look in his face, and he said, "I'm sorry, but your dad has died." And so on Christmas Day, I found myself in this hospital in Leicester, and I felt like the bottom just fell out of my world. And what had happened was, in the early hours of Christmas morning, my dad he'd been out with his wife and some friends. He was part of a band, and they'd been out to see Christmas in. So they'd been out Christmas Eve and had a drink, and they left in the early hours of Christmas morning from being with their friends, driving home. And there was a gentleman who was 5.5 times over the drink drive limit, and the police were pursuing him, and he was coming the other way down a fast straight road. So a high-speed chase was going on. This guy was drunk, and in the middle of the chase, he chose to turn out his lights in desperation, I guess, to get away from the police, and basically just hit my dad's car head on. And my dad didn't have a chance, didn't know it was coming, and so my dad died from massive heart problems as a result of the impact of the crash. And then just a few hours later, after being told my dad had died, my stepmom died in another hospital from brain trauma. And so at 21, it's just hard to put into words how broken I felt. I remember just being all over the place emotionally. I didn't know how to process it. I was only a young man. And so what happened from that for me was, aside from kind of all the usual why me, why my family, because I've always thought I hear about this stuff, but it doesn't come this close to home. It doesn't happen to me, and it had. And when I loved him so much, I just didn't know how to handle that. And I remember the biggest thing that began to happen as a result of that was not just feeling broken, but this like real fear that kind of grabbed a hold of my life. And that fear was that other people around me were going to die as well. And it just got really unhealthy in my life, to the level whereby if my wife didn't get home at the time I thought she should be home, or if my family were meant to be somewhere or they were late, in my head it meant that they died, and I was waiting for that same phone call or a knock at the door, whatever it might be. And it just gripped me. And so I lived all the time in this constant state of like, if I was going out or my family were going out or we were going somewhere, the fear of someone's going to die. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I just remember this one time at home where I just went into the lounge and I knew God was real. I knew God was there, but I needed him to help me because I couldn't do it in my own strength. And in my pain and that, I remember just like literally just like shouting out to God, like, you've got to help me with this. And that was the time in my life where it was like, without sounding like I'm trying to explain it, it was like just like I felt God so close, and it was like God was just like there in the room, and I just became aware of that. I became aware of this like sense of the fact that he loved me. And the nearest way I could put it was almost like when someone gives you a hug and you feel like comforted by that. And it was like God was hugging me. And what happened was, in the midst of that, I cried, but in the midst of that, it was like God was healing my brokenness. And so I felt like God was putting me back together, and I just felt like God was letting me know He was there and that He cared. And as He put me as a young 21-year-old man back together again, it was that day that I suddenly became aware from that, what I would call an encounter with God, that this fear no longer had its hold on my life. And all of a sudden, I didn't worry like I used to do and feel fearful about things. I felt free from that. And going on, I mean, that's obviously a lot of years ago now. I can honestly say, when I put my hand on my heart, that day God changed my life, and just kind of no longer did I feel as broken and as fearful. I still have my moments, I still have my times when I feel emotional, but I don't feel broken and I don't feel fearful. I feel healed and whole and free.